Welcome back to the show. Today, we have an awesome guest, one of my good friends, mentors, and brothers in this life, Michael Siddall. Michael, thanks for being here, man.
Pleasure. Delighted. Can't wait to see how it all goes.
Yeah, all right. Let's talk about some good stuff. Michael is a very experienced man. And just a little introduction, he is a 30-plus year yogi. He's worked with celebrities, athletes, all sorts of people, helping people align their mind, body, and gut. He's also a regenerative health practitioner. So this man has helped a lot of people and has inspired me a lot in my life. I met him several years ago when I was going through a divorce, and he was a breath of fresh air, of brotherhood, and has just shared a lot of wisdom nuggets with me over the years, and very dear friend. So that's a very rough introduction, but Michael, tell us more about who you are.
Well, I mean, that encapsulates a lot. I mean, I was in the business world as an advertising director prior to getting into yoga and all that kind of stuff. I was a professional actor in between. As you already indicated, I was a full-time yoga teacher for 30 plus years, and now I'm I look at it as an extension. I moved into more specifically into the health area, more specifically regenerative health, and more specifically regenerative health detox and the power of raw vegan foods.
Yeah, one of my favorite topics. Okay.
You and me both.
Yeah. Okay, well, let's start there because really, this show, for those of you that maybe have not seen the first episode and don't know a lot about me, my lifestyle, and then therefore extensions of my lifestyle, this show is all about detoxing and shaking off the shackles of the conditioning that we've received in this world. And Michael has done a lot of that. So yeah, let's talk about the raw vegan, the health side, shaking off shackles, all that, wherever you want to take that.
Well, I mean, I think it's more than evident in terms of leading a healthy, vibrant life, or if you're looking from a longevity point of view, living a long, vital, healthy life is very much dependent on how you choose to fuel yourself, how you choose to fuel and feed yourself. From my point of view, I think there's more than compelling evidence that living off of a primarily fruit and plant-based diet, raw if you can, high raw would be next, is without a doubt the best way to go in terms of living a vital life, but also a high vibrational energetic life, right? Mixed in with that is because we've all had a life of experience, right? Of which has not necessarily entirely lived that lifestyle. And quite frankly, even for me, am I there all the time? There are moments I not fall off a vegan wagon or plant-based wagon, but there are mental little things that perk like, we were just talking about Indian food, right? Or whatever, right? And so I think is to learning how to live the dance where you can be, I'm not even going to use the 80-20 thing, but where you can live a very vibrant, healthy life, preferably raw. And if you have a couple of things here and there, enjoy them immensely. Yeah. We had Ethiopian vegan food last night. It was delicious, right? Am I going to come home and go, oh my God, I had, cooked food, blah, blah, blah. Hey, once, twice a week, great.
Yeah.
Minimize it as you go along. But then get into the detox aspect of stuff.
Right? Clean it out.
Yeah, fasting, enemas, colonics. I mean, we can go on and on about all of that kind of stuff, right? Which is important to do because for me, you're talking about a life that's been lived, certainly for 30 plus or more years, not in a particularly healthy fashion, right? Now I haven't had red meat in over probably 40 years now, right? But, I was definitely addicted to cheese, and that was my last hurdle, right? So that stuff is still living and fermenting within my body, right? No matter how long I've been a vegan, it's been a long time now, right? But it's still there. So as you are an expert in the aspect of detoxifying, cleansing, getting all that mucoid plaque out, really looking at gut as the center of health. But I also think there's a very important conscious cleansing that also has to be addressed and looked at, right? I mean, we have these patterns that we've had these traumas inflicted upon us, from 0 to 7 that are deeply ingrained in our subconscious, right? And it is about, I think, that frontier now is how can you reprogram that? How can you reprogram that subconsciousness? So you're not in this constant battle with yourself, right, so to speak, right?
Yeah, because we're not in a battle with anybody else. We're not in a battle with the cheese, with the red meat. Man, that's been a huge part of my journey, and you've witnessed this as well. Can you share more about, what are some of those mental or conscious shackles that you've shaken off through detoxification, through the raw vegan lifestyle?
Well, I mean, I think, first of all, it happened physically, but I then think that you start to become more, I think the markers that you look at along this journey is markers of awareness, or how quickly you realize that you're falling back into a pattern or you're doing something again, right? Because most people, and myself included, there's that phrase, ignorance is bliss. Walk out on the street, most people are not connected, right? And so in one sense, they are very blissful. They don't know the difference, right? But once you've crossed that threshold, you've opened Pandora's box. You can't shut it again. You're back. You're moving forward now. You're moving forward in a life, and it's gonna have that proverbial 2 steps forward, 3 steps back, all of that kind of stuff, right? So, I think the thing is for your own reward system or sanity is to be able to pat yourself on the back and go, oh, I caught that. Or I'm more aware of that. Yeah. I recognize that sooner than I used to, right? These are markers that you're moving along, right? I'm not going to beat myself up about something, right? I'm going to go, okay, it is. And I recognize it, see it. It's another lesson that's going to move me forward on this path, right? So I think these are very important things to recognize from that mental part, from that consciousness part. And then I think there's that deep dive into who am I, right? Who am I really, right? And I'm not talking about the Michael part, but I'm talking about both, right? That we are part and parcel of this divine fabric. We are divinity itself, right? And there's a responsibility to that, right? Yeah. There is. And the power, I've just been listening to some very interesting podcasts, and we're talking about the power of humanity. We are this incredible organism that is incredibly powerful, incredibly self-healing, right? And the only thing that gets in the way with that is ourselves, right? Yep. And the path of yoga is ultimately about getting, away from yourself, not letting yourself get in the way of yourself, right? And I think this is very true also with the process of detoxification, cleansing, leading or beginning to jump into that more high vibrational lifestyle. Yes. Yeah. When you were talking about that, it reminded me literally 2 years ago, right before I got divorced. Every time I would just be beating myself up, having arguments in the marriage, whatever it was, I would just go get gas station pizza down the road. Like the worst thing you could put in your body. And in hindsight, like retrospect, looking back, it was because I felt so bad about myself and was beating myself up that the guy I was thinking of myself as, he eats trash. It doesn't matter. He can go do that. And so what you're just talking about as far as the consciousness part of who am I and how do I deserve to treat I am, it, whoever you know. And so the awareness, the elevation in awareness through this journey has been the biggest impact in my life. I've become way more aware of the unconscious decisions I was making, actions, habits, the way I was speaking to people, the way I was even feeling has now become conscious because the body I'm in is cleaner. There's more frequency, a higher frequency to where I'm actually able to observe these things. Yeah. And I like how you tie that into yoga and the philosophy and practice of yoga. And it's cool that you've brought both modalities together in your life. Yeah, to me, it was a natural extension. I think the extension I'm moving into now is how can you reprogram your subconsciousness? Because as you become more aware, that those dialogues you have when you fall off the wagon, let's say, that's mostly subconscious behavior, right? That's stuff that, whatever you were taught or you picked up, or there were moments where you're sad, so you gravitated towards some sugar, or you gravitated towards bread, or whatever that was. These are deeply ingrained, deeply
Yeah.
ingrained in us, right? So, and it doesn't take much for most of us to get pulled back in, right?
Yeah.
So, it's that sense of how can you reprogram that? And I was listening to something very interesting recently. And one of the simple ways to do that is we're most relaxed when we cross our arms. So we have one hand on one side of our body, one hand on the other, and we cross our legs. Right? People, when they're relaxed, just as you're sitting now, with their legs crossed. But what that does is that connects both hemispheres of the brain, right? And in that place, you can start reprogramming subconscious behavior, subconscious thought, and reprogram it with different thoughts, right? And I think that's, now I'm a newbie, I know very little about it, but that's an area or horizon that I really want to start to explore, right? Because what are the big ones that we have? I'm not good enough. I'm not loved. I'm not worthy, right? All of those things, those three big ones, feed into, at least for me, you know, how did I deal with trauma? How did I deal with stuff? Generally speaking, through food.
Yeah.
Right? Through drink, drugs, whatever it might have been, right?
Yep. Consumption.
Yeah, consumption, exactly. So if you can, one, start to be more aware right away, you catch yourself faster. Two, then aware that what is really the root cause of this, right? Because it's not just taste, right? No. And then once you've identified the root cause, well, how far can you dig down and let that go? And if you can let it go, and you recognize that divinity in you, right, the power in you, then you're connecting to this whole power-based structure that can literally heal anything.
Yes.
Literally anything, right?
Yeah.
And that is fascinating. Not only is it fascinating, it's like, I mean, historically, you talked about people living to, you know, I mean, way back when, 950, you know, 250, 300, 400 years, right? And I'm talking vital lives, you know, not just hanging around. We've gone backwards. We've regressed. We're not moving forward. We've regressed. And partially that is that we're being controlled by a messaging that has been happening for a long period of time. We've been brainwashed, right? And in many ways, it's not anybody's fault, right? Because this has happened for generations after generation after generations. You're bombarded with stuff on your computer, on your iPhone, on your television, whatever. And so we've been conditioned to be controlled.
Yes.
And now there are people and communities out there that are moving past that. And that's a wonderful, beautiful thing.
Mm-hmm. I'm so glad you just talked about that, Michael, the messaging, because that right there, I feel like is the web beneath all these shackles that are invisible, mental, physical, all this stuff. All of those things root down into this web of messaging that we've covertly been channeled or corralled into.
Yeah.
And it leads down into the distortions in every area of our life.
Everyone. I mean, some of it's actually mind-blowingly comedic and hysterical.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't know if you're aware that at the top of the standard American pyramid for food these days is Fruit Loops.
I was not aware of
Yeah,
that.
that is listed.
Oh my word.
You have to say to yourself, that's absolutely insane. But you have to look at it and go, this is the comedy that we've allowed to happen. And the thing about comedy is that you have the two masks. I don't know if you're familiar with that with acting, right? There's comedy and tragedy. They go hand in hand.
Yep,
right?
back and forth.
And, you know, I think we're seeing the tragedy at this point.
Yeah.
All really, when you look back, the comedy of the farceness that has been going on. It's like unbelievable. But you can't blame your average guy or average woman or average whatever. And this is the messaging is nonstop from the time you were way before the time you were born.
Well, what you just said too is we've allowed this to take place, and it brings me back to what we're allowing to happen collectively is because we're allowing in our own lives. And this conversation we're having right now is all about how you and I and people like us have gone. It doesn't matter what everybody else is doing. What am I doing right now? What am I allowing in my life? Because what we don't allow in our life, we usually don't allow in the energy and the circles around us. And then that reverberates out into the collective.
The funny part about it is the answer is quite simple. right? If you really boil it down, intellectually, the answer is very, very simple. And it's simply about love. Who do you need to love? You need to love yourself, right? If you truly loved yourself,
Yes.
if you truly, if you think about it, if you truly, 100% loved yourself, you wouldn't be doing all this stuff.
Right.
Right? You wouldn't be, putting trash in your body, because this physical housing is what actually houses you, right? So you'd be taking care of it on all sorts of levels, moving, meditation, yoga, calisthenics, how you feed yourself, how you choose to do stuff, how you choose to speak to not only yourself or communicate with others, right? So when you say, hey, I want to love myself, it's a big thing, right? And I was reading something again recently. Instead of saying, I love myself, think about loving the self, right? So that it's not the I identity, it's the identity of who you really are, right? So going back to the simplicity is you need to be able to love yourself, because you can't love anybody else unless you truly love yourself. And if you loved yourself, you're living in a place of harmony, right? There really isn't any worry. What are you gonna worry about?
Right, exactly. I love that.
And so if you're in that place, because we are this divine mechanism, you're going to just make appropriate choices. That's a tough battle for most of us.
Yeah, it's overwhelming.
Battle, right? Yeah.
And like you say, it's so simple because it just starts with one decision at a time, one tweaking our perspective. Like for me, a couple months ago, I stopped saying I love myself and I started saying I am love.
Right.
Because I realized, if I am love, then what would love do in this situation, in that situation, in that situation? And it ties into the whole food thing. I used to be so bad about binging on cheese and bread and all this stuff. And now I can go out for Ethiopian and love myself and enjoy it. Because
100%.
It's within the boundaries that I've created for myself. And those boundaries will continue to move and shift as I grow. But right now, I'm fucking happy with that.
Well, there was an experiment that I did when I was teaching yoga. And I recently did it with somebody I was teaching who was living in the UK. And I'm pulling it out to do with other people these days. And it would be a question. I'd sit in front of the class and I'd go, okay, so all of you here, those of you who feel that you're beautiful, raise your right hand. And you'd get like maybe one person out of 30. And I was thought, geez, man, it was like a light bulb went on. This is amazing. Nobody really believes it, right? Including myself at times in my life, right? And we should be able to, at any point in time, look somebody right in the eye and go, you know what? I'm a beautiful person. With no arrogance, no, just out of a place of humility. I am a beautiful person. The people who are watching this are beautiful people. You're a beautiful person. But we've been trained, oh, you don't want to say that because you're going to be an arrogant, self-pompous fool, whatever. But no, this is the beginning steps of this. I am beauty. I am the embodiment of beauty. And at the core of that is love.
Yes.
And if you're there, then, hey, nothing better than a mango.
Michael, it's so true. It's reminding ourselves of who we truly are. Yeah. Because who we truly are outside of these vehicles, which I really like that you just brought that up. Like this is our vehicle in this life. So the better we treat this, the more we get to know this and invest in it. We're getting to know and investing in our experience, the vehicle for our experience. However, the more I've fallen in love with myself, the more I love everything and everyone around myself. And I'm not necessarily attached to anybody because I know who I am outside of this body, outside of this human experience. And this ties into what we're talking about as far as shaking off the shackles of, play it small, be humble, be a humble person and don't be prideful and arrogant. But it's like, no, be confident in who you are, know who you are, speak who you are, and allow others to be like, I want that too. I'm tired of playing small. They're doing it. Maybe I can give myself permission to do it. And that switch right there is something that is so attractive and magnetic. That's how we're changing the collective, one person at a time, and that person is ourselves.
It's the only way you can do it. You can't change people. They have to change themselves.
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
and
amen.
The beautiful aspect about all of this, to bring this full circle in terms of the essence of this podcast in terms of detoxification, regeneration, whatever is, when you can get yourself into this place of loving yourself and recognizing that you're a beautiful being, the art of transformation is not necessarily an easy thing, right? Transforming yourself means you have got to look at the good, bad, and the ugly. It could be challenging. Giving up certain food groups are going to be challenging, right? There's going to be challenges. Detoxification is challenging. But when you are in a place that, hey, I'm standing in this light of love, this light of beauty, and I'm making these choices because it's going to make my light brighter. It's going to make me more vital. It's going to make me stronger. It's going to make me more effective. It's going to make me more creative, more embracing, more expanding.
Yes.
All of these things, although there's challenges in the path, they become easier to deal with.
Amen. Which means those shackles have been shook. They've been dropped. Amen. Okay, so Michael, I'm curious. We talked about more of like the physical detoxification. What other areas of your life, in your experience, your walk, your path, do you feel like you've shaken the conditioning, shaken the shackles? You see it from a different perspective, and that perspective is something that if you can share with other people to free them, what would that be?
Well, I think one of the key things is that we never really completely leave behind, I'll use the word trauma, right? We never completely leave behind, because there's always remnants of it, right? And that's okay. It is okay. That's okay. It's, again, the recognition and the awareness of that I've moved through stuff and I'm continuing to move stuff, because it's like a journey. This is not something that, all of the stuff we're talking about is not a finite scenario. It just keeps going on, right? It keeps going on, and you become, you take little steps, you get better, you get more steps, you become more proficient. At some point in time, perhaps maybe a bit of an expert in stuff, right? At some point then perhaps you become a teacher to help other people. Then perhaps you become a mentor, right? So it's all of these things. We have to let go of being hard on ourselves, right?
Yes.
Is to just allow. It's a tough one, because you want to be in a place where you let things happen naturally, but at the same time you have to work at it. It's a balance, right? You want to let things happen naturally or organically, but you also have to put the effort in, right? And putting the effort in doesn't mean that you're overdoing necessarily. There's a balance to all of this. I don't know if I answered your question or not. I went off in a
No,
little bit of a tangent.
100%. 100%.
I think that we go back to the trauma. Even when we're getting good at things, we go back to the trauma, right? We go back to, I'm overdoing, or working too hard, or I'm not working at all. I'm taking this. We were talking about this earlier, right? Like, I'm in a place in my life right now where things are great, right? So I'm learning to be in this place to allow something to come to me, as opposed to trying to make it happen, right? And there's a balance, because you do, in some sense, have to put some effort into making something happen.
Right.
But you also have to be open enough for it to come to you.
Yeah.
And if you go, this is sort of the yin yang symbol, right? That balance. There's the balance to this. Because if you go one way, you can close it off, and you go the other way, you can close it off as well. Right? Because it can't be very effective just sitting on my couch all day.
Right.
Right. So there's a balance to it all. And that's the beauty of all this, the balance, meditation, breath work, all of these things are bringing you back to the midline. Right?
So one of my teachers told me that a couple weeks ago. He said, don't worry about the right or the left. Keep focusing on the center. The right and left will balance themselves out.
Yeah.
And I like the whole picture you just painted of the traumas, the memory of who we used to be will always be there. The way I like to say it is there's always invitations to fall back into old patterns. But now we kind of return to sender those letters that come into the mailbox, those invitations. And you hit the nail on the head, in my opinion, is it's be easy on yourself.
Yeah.
Because if we're not easy on ourselves, and we're not putting our awareness on the fact that, yes, the traumas still pop up. However, I'm also aware that I handle this with more distance. There's distance between the stimulus and the response now. I'm being easier on myself. I'm also flowing with, like you said, maybe things need to come to me now instead of me always just trying to heal and be better and this and that. And that's something that has helped me in my life so much, is just accept where I'm at, be easy on myself, and then continue moving forward.
Right. And I know you like where you are now.
Yeah, I love
And I
it.
like where I am now.
Yeah.
And the extension of the recognition of that is all of that couldn't happen if it hadn't been all the other shit for all the other years, right? I am accumulation of all the experiences that I've had. So
Yes.
I couldn't be where I am now if I had not lived all of those other things, traumatic, non-traumatic, whatever you want to call them. They have been the engine, or that which has propelled me to get to where I am now. Right? I mean, there's a gratitude thing I do every day, and I put it on my affirmation of the day today, which is I'm grateful for this gift of life that I have been given, right? For the lessons that I am learning, and for the man that I am becoming. So I can't become the person that I want to be, or not that I want to be, because I'm happy with it. I can't continue to evolve and ascend if I haven't had all these other experiences prior to this, right? Some have been great, some have not. Some of them are lessons I'd rather not have had,
Yeah.
and some of them I'm glad I had. But they're all lessons, and all of them are moving me forward. And that's the place brings it back to the power of recognition, right? And this is where there are people out there standing in the light. There are these people now rising up. I mean, we are seeing a level of ascension, I think, that we haven't seen in quite some time, right? And that's a wonderful thing, right? But all of those people couldn't have ascended or gone on that path had they not recognized where they had been.
Yes. No regrets.
No.
Everything happens for a reason.
Yeah.
I really am glad you highlighted that, Michael, because so many good people in my life right now that are leaders, teachers, I still see a strong thread in a lot of them that they're super hard on themselves. And it's limiting them from going to the next level of being a teacher, an impactor in this world. Because I feel like if we have like regrets or like, I should have done my past different, well, then we're automatically bringing that energy from the past onto our future. Whereas I feel like in my own walk, the more grace and love and like, yeah, I'm glad all that crazy stuff happened. I'm glad I messed up and acted like an absolute idiot, because now I know, like you just said, it's made me who I am. And the gratitude for the past, putting that gratitude onto the future, makes the future like, I don't regret anything. As soon as something happens now in my life and I'm like, oh yeah, I don't want to do that again. Instead of beating myself up, I'm like, well, at least I know now that I don't want to do that again.
Well, and I think the other thing that I think is interesting about this is, so let's say the core of us is love. The answer is love. Right? The answer is standing in love and standing in your own beauty. We go through this thing of there is a teacher of mine once said there's the understanding of the practice, there's the practice of the practice, and there's a contemplation of the practice. And the magic lies in the contemplation of the practice, right? So in other words, we all have to learn, right? We all have to practice what we learn. And then we all have to really sit with what we learn. And then ultimately, we need to put it into action. So in other words,
I like it.
there's all sorts of people we know who even live the lifestyle we talk about to some extent. And they talk about it, but they don't necessarily live it. So if you want to be a kind person, then you have to stop talking about being kind and you have to actually be kind. You want to be a loving person? Yeah, talk about it. But if you're just talking about it and you're not acting about it, it's not going anywhere.
Yeah.
Right? You want to be a healthier person, right? You want to live a more vibrant life, then get out of your head, stop talking about it, and start eating properly.
Right.
Right? It's just really simple. So it ultimately all comes down to action.
Yeah, I like that contemplation part because there's so much value in that.
That's where the magic is.
Yeah.
That is where the magic is.
Oh, and to spin off of that, the key, like, I don't think we can contemplate, or what I call take inventory of my life, without spaciousness. And this is something I talk about a lot on my social media and with my clients, especially the men, is like, as kings, if we don't create spaciousness for ourselves, we will be pushed and pulled by our own feminine energy and the feminine energy around us in the world constantly, because it's always vying for our attention, always trying to get to be witnessed, because the deepest desire of the feminine, I believe, is to be witnessed.
Right.
And she's always saying, hey, well, look at me, look at me, look at me, look at me. And if we don't have the spaciousness to know ourselves, to contemplate our lives, then we're going to get pulled all over the place. So that contemplation key is something that we can do inside the spaciousness. And I'm really glad you brought that up.
Yeah, because the irony is most people are afraid of silence.
Yes.
This is why everybody talks too much.
Yes.
They do.
Right?
And so, again,
I'm guilty of it too.
This teacher said to me a long time ago, said, everything's coming out of your mouth is a lie. And I thought, that can't be right. And the more I thought about it, it was true, because I could say to you, hey, Jonathan, or anybody else we're talking to here, I can say, hey, I'm a great guy. Well, how the hell would you know? You're either going to take my word for it, which is probably a very dangerous thing to do, right? Because especially now that we've gone through what we've gone through in the last 5-6 years or whatever, right? You need to find out by how the person acts. So in other words, if my statement is I'm a nice guy, you're not going to know if that's true or not. The only way you can determine whether that's true or not, if my actions fall in line with what I've said, and that my actions are consistent with what I said over a long period of time, then it's true. Other than that, it's bullshit.
I forgot that you told me that 2 years ago when I was going through my divorce, and I didn't want to get divorced. I was doing everything I could do to get my wife back. I was working on myself. I had a whole plan on how to fix everything. And I was trying to communicate that to her. And you said, Jonathan, it doesn't matter. Everything you're telling me right now, everything you're telling her is a lie. And I was like, Michael, who the hell do you think you are? What are you talking about here? And then I sat with it, and you were right. I was lying to myself. I was lying to you. I was lying to her, because it was all just words, and I had to get real. And that's been a big part of who I am today. The last 2 years, I've lived it. I've integrated everything I said I was going to do through that divorce, through my own development. And because of that, I can sit here and now say, oh, yes, I'm this man. And I'm not lying, because I've proven it. You're the one that brought up. So I appreciate that, because I forgot about that.
No, I mean, because I'll speak for myself. I am simply an accumulation of all my experiences. And what does that mean? So it's my story. It's not your story. It's my story, right? So there's several things that have to happen. One, I need to prove to myself that story has aspects of it that are true. And some of them are probably not true at all, right? Because my story is an accumulation of my experiences of what my parents have taught me, what schools taught me, what friends and peers have taught me, right? Some of it's empirically proven. Some of it's been proven by action over periods of time. And some of it's just hearsay.
Yeah.
Right? Because we all have our own experiences from where we are. So my story is just my story. So I think in continuing this thread of, I also have to understand my own dialogue. Okay. So even what I'm saying now, right? Is it true? Well, I don't know. We'll see. We'll see how my actions back that up over a period of time. Right. And then, so I'm not only am I looking at how other people can gauge it, but how I can gauge it for the validity, the true validity for even myself.
And this takes us back to detoxing, especially physically, because the clarity that we can possess as the observer of this experience, when we detox this vehicle that our experience is in, it's amazing. And you guys heard me talk about this a lot on my platforms, in any of my webinars, anything. And Michael talks about this too, but the raw vegan lifestyle, it's not just about the animals. It's not just about, all these different things. It's about, how can I have the best experience in this body, in this life? How can I conduct the most amount of electricity through my cells? And that's the physical detox. And then there's all these other areas, relationships. Oh, there's relationships in my life that I need to detox. There's spending patterns I need to detox. There's all these things. Behaviors, all of it. And it can get overwhelming. And especially in today's new age world, it can be like, oh my God, I have to heal. There's more work I have to do. I blah, 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 blah. But at the end of the day, like you said earlier, Michael, is like, we got to be easy on ourselves. And we got to be okay with where we're at, because being okay with where we're at allows us to move to where we're going.
Goes back to, at this moment in time, can you sit down and say, I'm a beautiful person? And I am. Yep. And in that beauty is, can I make that painting even more beautiful?
Yeah.
Can I make that picture even more exquisite? Right? Can I bring more light, more sunshine to that picture? And it is possible. Right? And, the art of detoxification is physical, mentally, and spiritually. All of the above have to factor into that, in my opinion, factor into that equation for you to be. And it's not by chance that our ancestors and the ancients, what did they call this body? A temple. For a reason, because it is actually. It is that which houses this divine spirit that is us. Because I'm not Michael, I'm something else.
Yes. The observer of this experience, and this is our temple for this journey.
Yeah.
Well, with that, let's wrap up and sit with everything we talked about, because I love talking to you and we could go on and on, but we talked about some powerful stuff. If you guys have not seen any of the other episodes, go to my YouTube channel, check that out. Follow Michael on Instagram. What's your Instagram handle?
At The Abundant Yogi.
At The Abundant Yogi. He's got awesome affirmations of the day that he puts out, and honestly just shares his love and his light on Instagram, which we all need more of that. And I encourage you too, whoever's watching, put your love and your light on Instagram, anywhere out there, even the person you're walking next to on the street or anything like that. But yeah, thanks again for watching the show. Michael, thank you so much for being here.
My pleasure. Great to see you, brother.
Yeah, man. Appreciate you so much.
All right,
like, subscribe, follow me on Instagram, follow Michael, and as always, remember that you're a beautiful person.